Welcome back to the ARKAT podcast. I'm Fatma Al-Khayat, joined by my co-host Ahmed Al-Mullah. Today's conversation is actually one we've been really looking forward to because we're stepping into a topic that sits very closely to our hearts, in fact, of how cities are imagined, taught, and ultimately shaped. Urban planning, not only as a professional discipline, but as a field of thought and action. So we're delighted to be joined by Dr. Varkki, whose work spans architecture, planning, research, and academia, and whose perspective is especially valuable in a region like ours, where cities are evolving super quickly. His work has engaged with planning education, affordable housing, heritage-led redevelopment, planning support systems, and the changing role of urban planning in places like Sharjah and the wider UAE. And what makes this conversation especially important is that urban planning today is being asked to do far more than just organize land uses or guide growth. It's expected to respond to housing pressures, climate realities, fragmented urban form, mobility, identity, and the everyday quality of life of people living in our cities. So today we want to talk about planning through an academic and practical lens, how the field has evolved, how it's being taught, where the gaps still are, and what needs to change if planning is to remain genuinely relevant in the future. So, Dr. Varkki, it's such a pleasure to have you. Thank you for being part of today's conversation.
Yeah, we really appreciate it.
Yeah, we really appreciate it and really excited.
It's great to be here. Like I said, I really appreciate the work that both of you do.
Thank you.
Right?
Thank you so much. That's very kind.
And Ahmed, it's always a pleasure to
Likewise,
to chat with you.
Professor
I'm grateful
Varkki.
that you come to AUS and taught classes for us.
It's my
the
pleasure.
students appreciate it, and I appreciate it.
Thank
but
you
it's
so
it's good to be here, and I really look forward to this conversation.
Thank you. So to start off with, you have spent decades across architecture, planning, research, and academia from the US all the way to the UAE. So in very different contexts. We want to dig into a little bit of your journey. What first drew you into urban planning, and how has your own understanding of what good planning means evolved over the course of your career?
Yeah, so I have an undergraduate degree in architecture.
Yeah.
And I worked as an architect in India for a few years.
Right.
I enjoyed that tremendously, right? I had this passion for buildings and the whole engaging with materials, with craft, and that was just fascinating.
Yeah.
After a point, I felt that I had been working for other people. At one point, I wanted to do my own, and I wasn't sure that I could pull it off on my own. So I started teaching and practicing. In all of this, I finally realized, the architecture projects I'm working on were really complex and challenging and things like that, and fascinating. But I felt what I didn't know was the broader context within which my projects were happening. And so there was one particular commercial building that I was working on in the city of Kochi, where I'm from. It was a real tight site, and I was wrestling with it. At one point, I paused and I said, I really don't know how this building fits into the broader city. What is the logic? How does it work?
Sorry, but where were you based at the time?
In Kochi, in India.
Kochi, sorry,
India.
yeah.
So I'm originally from India. I studied there. I worked in Nepal for some time. Then I came back to India. I worked in Kochi as an architect.
Yeah.
And so I realized this. So
I can
while
imagine
I was
very complex.
oh yes,
complex landscape.
But in those days it was also less mechanized. There was a lot of craft, and I was on site. It was a really wonderful time. But as I was teaching, I realized, when you teach, you realize what you don't know.
Right,
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so I said, I don't have this broader context. And so that's why I went to the United States to study urban planning, to get that broader context. I thought I would come back to architecture, to be frank.
Yeah.
But once I started engaging with the city and learning about the city and its complexities, I was lost. I mean, that just sucked me up, and I was in it. So that's really what moved me into urban planning, and so as a result, kind of you're talking about my evolution as good planning was your question, right?
Yeah.
So So my master's degree was really very technically focused. There was a lot of emphasis in those days on process, planning process, engaging with people, which is important. There were technical skills that we learned. And so soon I lost my obsession with how places look and feel. Right? I was really used to be obsessed by that.
Yes.
But then I had a much broader view.
Right.
When I started teaching at the University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign, I got involved with this East St. Louis Action Research Project where equity and social justice became very important.
Right. Yeah.
And that was kind of consuming. And then the work I was doing on planning support systems, which is kind of environmental economic system impacts of planning and growth. So I shifted from environment, social justice to this broader thing. Then I came to the UAE, and things that are a whole different.
Which year was that, if you don't
So
mind
in
me asking?
2007.
I think
So when you say decades and things like that, I feel, oh my God, I'm so old.
Yeah, but that's such a critical conjuncture in time as well, 2007.
Exactly.
Yeah, it was just before the 2008 crisis and all that stuff. But I came, it was an exciting time to be here in 2007. So when I was when we worked on planning projects in the United States, we would do these simulations of future change in large regions and things like that, engage in regional planning processes and things like that. We would talk about rapid change, right? And it felt rapid until I came to the UAE, and rapid means something
completely different.
Right?
Yeah.
And for quite a few years, I thought to myself, can you actually plan when change is so rapid?
Interesting.
Very
right?
interesting
Can you actually plan? Because by the time you come up with your plan, the whole thing has
Everything
changed.
has changed.
Right?
Yeah, your assumptions are no longer valid.
And so then I realized, no, you still have to plan.
It's even more important to plan when
It's
things are
more
changing
important
rapidly.
to plan. And how you do it becomes fascinating.
Right.
And so I guess that's my evolution. So I was an administrator for 10, 11 years. So there was this break with planning, right?
Yeah.
My head was in university administration and all that stuff. So I've actually just come back to planning in the last year.
Yeah.
Okay.
So there's this kind of black hole in my life, which is administration, but now I'm back.
Yeah.
So I think this is a good interjection because we're talking about the speed of change, right? And as we know, the UAE, as we were just talking about, especially in the last 2 decades, I would say, has experienced rapid change, like I think 2007 to today, from a discipline that was really focused on land use and physical expansion to one that now has to engage with livability, housing, resilience, identity. And so, Professor Varkki, from your perspective, what have been the defining shifts in how planning is understood and practiced in the UAE? And where do you think the understanding of planning is still too narrow?
Okay. So I was lucky when I first arrived here. I worked with my colleague, Dr. Amr Mustafa, on a structure plan for southern Ras Al Khaimah.
Okay.
Right? And it was an eye-opener because I was actually engaged in, I got to know the place, which southern Ras Al Khaimah is just spectacular, right? Beautiful.
It is.
But I realized one thing. So while we were asked to do a structure plan, what was really needed was a land subdivision plan. And so there was this mismatch of what we were doing, what was expected. But it was...
subdivision plan.
For how do you subdivide land?
Yeah.
You got all this land. How do you literally subdivide
We
it?
might ask you to define a few words because it's not a technical audience, and we tend to do that. And it's a very interesting one that you raised. So
and I will drop a lot of technical terms, so don't hesitate to ask me to explain. So that's when I realized that urban planning in that day and age was really about land subdivision. And urban engineering, right? Building roads, delivering utilities. That's what it was about, right?
Yes.
And in the case of residential neighborhoods, particularly Emirati neighborhoods, it's about delivering the whole neighborhood, right? That was the focus. Well, that an iconic architecture.
Yes, you hit the nail on the head.
Yeah,
Exactly.
that was urban planning at that point.
Yeah.
There were changes following that. After 2008, things began to pick up again. There was a focus on high-quality residential neighborhoods, particularly, I would say, in Dubai and Abu Dhabi.
Right, and usually gated communities in terms of a typology.
There was that focus. So there was a shift in that, right? So it was more than engineering. There was the look and feel, the experience. These things were important. Then I would say Abu Dhabi's Urban Planning Council published these plans.
Right.
Yeah. That I thought was a pivotal moment. Right?
Absolutely.
Because till then, you never could find a plan.
Exactly. Yeah.
No,
There was never a plan available. Even though they were produced, you could never see it. That is one. The second change was there was a broader scope, right? The Abu Dhabi, the UPC looked at the broader region, and they also looked at a longer time frame.
Yes.
Right. So that was the change.
Yeah, it was.
And then now you look at Dubai's 2040 plan, right? So that's also taking a similar approach.
Right.
Though I must say, it's not readily available publicly.
Yeah.
No, it isn't. There's a small executive summary, but not in the depth that the reports of the Abu Dhabi Plan 2030, I believe, was. Yeah.
Right. And so we can talk about it at maybe a later point. But I think that's one of the functions of urban planning, right? Is to communicate our vision, not just through a press release or even executive summary, but in all the detail. Why is it confidential?
Yeah.
The whole point of plans is to coordinate what different people do.
Yes, yeah.
So just put it out there.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so to me, that's the change. So cities, the UAE cities have become much more complex, which is great because now they are richer, not in an economic sense, but in an experiential sense. Yeah. Culturally, they're so much more advanced, right?
Yes.
The arts have grown. And so it's great. So planning has changed to me in those ways.
All right.
I hope I've answered
your
question.
No, you did. Absolutely.
Perfectly. And just to shift the conversation back to academia, urban academia. So you've been obviously deeply involved in planning education for many years now. How has the teaching of urban planning evolved, in your opinion, both globally and in the UAE? And what do these changes tell us about where the profession itself is heading?
Right. So I would say planning education when I was in graduate school was, as I said earlier, was largely about kind of technical issues, but also about process.
Yes.
Right. Planning wasn't so much about urban design where I studied.
Sure.
Right?
It was about the governance and the systems that lead to the physical manifestation. Yeah.
Which is very critical.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
But that's what it was. Since then, obviously, sustainability has become a really important issue. What it is, we define it very differently.
In different ways.
It's a fuzzy term, right? We think as you said earlier, resilience is becoming a big factor.
Yeah, climate resilience.
But and in the United States, I think the focus has still been on kind of engagement, social issues, and things like that.
Right. And social equity. And
the social justice, equity, and things. All very important. But one of the changes we've seen in some U.S. schools, but in our program at AUS, is actually a focus on plan making.
Yeah.
I never studied plan making. You just were supposed to figure it out.
Yes.
Or look at how somebody else did a plan.
Look at earlier precedents and build off of them. Yeah.
I don't think that's good enough, right? So at AUS now we have a course on plan making, which is pretty unique. And it talks about, just like in architecture, how you use doors, windows, floors, concrete, all that stuff. In urban planning, you need to know how you use the different components of a plan, right? Starting at the bottom, you've got regulations. How do you design a regulation?
Yes,
Exactly.
It's not trivial.
No,
right?
it isn't.
And it's not a regulation. Sometimes you may need to give an incentive.
Right. Yeah.
And when we first used to talk about this, the default thing is, just put out a rule that you can't do this.
Yes. Yeah.
Why? Sometimes maybe more effective to have incentive.
Yeah.
Right? Or there are different of these components. these add up to strategies, policies, and at the topmost in the vision, right? The plan has to be. So, so plan making has emerged as really a critical new skill that we address in our curriculum.
Right.
And so I think that's the way I think it's headed. There's a craft of planning that is developing, or plan making. There's a craft of plan making that we need to focus on. And then we need to be better at that.
Yeah, and I think also today a lot of students come out of university with a strong conceptual or analytical abilities, but then once they enter the workforce or practice, suddenly they're dealing with institutions, implementation, political realities, and trade-offs that don't always show up clearly or are taught in studio or coursework. So what do you think planning education still gets wrong, Professor Varkki, and what must change to make it more practical and future-ready for students once they enter the workforce?
Okay, so this is an argument.
This is something we discuss a lot, you and I.
Right. And this is not just in planning, right? In other disciplines also.
Absolutely.
Today the conversation is, oh, you folks in academia, you're just talking about theories and stuff like that. The students don't know. So I have a position in between.
Sure.
Right? If we don't have a strong conceptual foundation, right? If we're too focused on skills and techniques, things like that, the world will change.
Exactly.
Those skills will become redundant.
Yeah.
You need that foundation, right? So at AUS, our undergraduate education has a strong general education component. Right? That's what sets us apart. And similarly so our role is to prepare students in that way. The realities of politics, of figuring out the details, first of all, those are place specific.
True.
Right?
True.
Working in Sharjah, it's different working in Dubai.
Absolutely.
Different in Abu Dhabi, just within the UAE.
Even within the same city, entity to entity can function completely different.
So there's not a way to give people, what we can do is give them frameworks to think about it, right?
Yeah.
But ultimately they have to go land on their feet, struggle. And this is not just in the UAE. Right?
Everywhere.
There've been documented cases in Denmark, in the United States, of how planners struggle with the politics. Right?
Absolutely.
And
it is a lot of politics.
It is, and I know a lot of people that have actually stepped away from the field of urban planning because of how political it could get and the complexity of managing that.
But that's what it is. Right? That's what it is. And so we can't capture the full complexity in the classroom, because just the conceptual foundation that you were talking about, that itself is difficult.
True.
So my answer is kind of
but maybe like what's missing from the academic model? Like, do you feel, because I had the privilege of studying in a 5-year university in the US when I also did architecture, so I could see a lot of similarities when you're describing your story. But we actually, as part of your graduation, you have to get credits where you work full time in a job. So it was through that they called it a cooperative program. So it was 6 months in your 3rd year, 6 months in your 4th year and 5th year. So that's, you graduate with 18 months of real life experience. And through that experience, I realized I was not that interested in the practice of architecture as much as I was in the conceptual side of it, and that's what led me to urban planning. So do you feel like there's merit, or what's missing is maybe this marriage between, for example, work placement or institutions having a more active role in preparing students for practice?
We may be ready now to pick it up. When I first arrived, we had an internship component. It wasn't a co-op like you described. It was an internship. And frankly, it wasn't that useful in those days.
Sure.
Right? Maybe today is different.
I
don't know if, I think.
Why did you think it wasn't useful?
Because we were teaching something in the classroom. They were going and experiencing something very different.
The internships were partnered up with who, if you don't mind me asking?
So they were on wherever they could get it. See, that's the other thing. There are not that many internships available.
So was it with like engineering consultancies?
Most of it were actually in local government.
Local government,
mostly municipalities. And so it was limited.
It was very limited.
And so I felt, and so we dropped it. We dropped the
fair enough.
requirement, right?
Sure.
Now, I think I can say this, we're in conversation with at least one private entity to offer a co-op to
Amazing.
Emirati students.
Oh, that would be amazing.
Yeah.
It could be a game changer, honestly.
We're still in the
conversations,
conversation, but if we can pull that off,
Yeah.
I think that would be good. But we can't do it for all students.
Absolutely.
No.
There's just not enough. There's not enough jobs, I think, for us to be able to pull it off. You know, if we do it, it has to be a paid.
Yeah.
It does. It does. Yeah.
That's going to be hard to pull.
Yeah.
off.
Sure.
Right? And so we're caught between a rock and a hard place. But you were asking me, like, what are some non-negotiable, some essential skills that I think moving forward?
Yeah.
Foresight. Foresight is fundamental to planning.
Tell us about that. Right. Yeah.
So what do I mean by foresight? Planning, unfortunately, was talked about today, is for tomorrow. I mean, literally tomorrow or next year.
Exactly.
But no, planning has to be about 15 years, 10 years, 15 years, 20 years.
50 years even.
Maybe 50 years, right?
Yeah.
It gets shakier 50 years out, but at least definitely 15 to 20 years, right?
Long-term
It has to
thinking.
be. How do you think about the future? And that skill set is called foresight.
Yeah.
Sure.
Right? So it's more than projections, forecasts, scenarios, right?
Yes.
It's not a well-developed area of expertise. It's still so it's going to be hard to teach it.
Absolutely.
But we're going to have to do it.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because we can't afford to have people go out there just think about this as an architecture project.
Absolutely.
Right? Or a design project for
Exactly.
tomorrow, for next year, for next 2 years.
Yes. Yeah.
Right? So our projects, we have a capstone workship. That's the presentation that Ahmed was referring to. We look at 15 years out.
Yeah.
Right? And so, but it's difficult. It's difficult to get students to think about 15 years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And especially in our context and planning today, it's usually reactionary. So, for example, if there's a road that is congested, they want to add a lane to fix it now. But if there was foresight, you'd know that maybe what you need is a different mode of transport or a land use issue or something else.
No, and so there's a connected. So what you bring up, Ahmed, is there's a related issue, and that is systems thinking.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right.
That's what kept playing in my head.
Yeah.
These two words.
Yeah,
Systems
thinking
exactly.
is again also non-negotiable.
Yeah.
Yes.
You can't isolate a problem, a planning problem, and work on it, right? So you mentioned you widen the road, and a year later it's still congested. That's because affordable housing is in Sharjah.
Right.
Jobs are in Jebel Ali.
Yes.
And the more you expand it, the more people are going to be living in Sharjah. More people
Lack of
will-
public
will-
transportation as well, and lack of
any
connectivity.
alternative. Similarly, flooding.
Yes.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
I just learned that the suburb of Siuh, outside Sharjah,
Yes. You.
is actually in the path of a watercourse from
Like a
Alain.
floodplain. Yeah.
Alain all the way to, I think, Al Quain is where that is. So when it floods in Alain,
Of course.
the runoff actually goes all the way through Siuh. And so
Wow.
in the 2024
Yes.
floods,
Yes. 24.
Siuh was inundated.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right? And so it's just like with traffic, right? So if you don't have foresight, if you can't see
The core underlying
systems,
issues, yeah.
how these systems are interrelated, well, it's going to be thing. Then ethics. You have to know ethics.
Definitely.
So I'm not talking specifically about aspects of the urban
No,
thing, but
for
just
sure.
general
What
skills.
values will guide you through it?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly.
And communication is
That's so important.
Because
Fundamental.
these are fundamental
Yeah.
values
Right.
that you'll carry
Yeah.
on, because like you said, the context is very different, and
Right.
you were talking about it from city to city. So imagine from country to country. So you want to ensure that you're giving your students the right kind of skill sets that they
Right.
can
Yes.
take on and adapt.
Right.
And that was what was amazing about studying in the UK, because they really gave me that system thinking. Hence
Right.
why I was able to come and still apply those system thinkings here,
In a
but
different
ensuring,
context, yeah.
ensuring that I'm implementing
Right.
contextually rooted typologies, design solutions. And that was another thing as well. They taught me as well the power of contextually rooted and designing a plan that responds to the existing environment.
So that was going to be
yeah.
the next point, context.
Yes.
Context.
So one of the things I had to learn when I moved here from the United States, I had to study the context.
Exactly.
Because I can't come here and talk about the way things are done there. It means nothing here.
Which we see this quite a lot as well in
Right.
terms of the typologies that were built into,
Yeah, and the practice, right?
And
So,
the practice,
I think one of the impacts that our urban planning program at AUS has had is we've helped educate a generation of urban planners here in the UAE. And I'm so proud of our alumni, right? They're making such a
You should be.
They're making such an impact.
Yeah.
They've been in the leadership positions in so many government and private entities.
That's so inspiring.
We need to have this context. We need to know what's something that's practiced in another context. What does it mean here?
Exactly.
In this time, in this place? What does it mean? I think that's one of the things we are trying to give our students.
Yeah. And on all of these points, I think these are amazing pain points that you've just raised. If you were to redesign a planning curriculum for the next generation of students in the UAE, what would you make absolutely non-negotiable in terms of skills, exposure, or mindset?
Oh yeah, I'd probably come back to the to the stuff that we just talked about, right? So I would say foresight, systems thinking, ethics, communication.
Communication is such a key one, Professor Varkki. Could you talk a little bit about that? Because a lot of what we do, especially when you talk about the processes, the regulations, sometimes communicating something is so important. And I think a lot of times in urban planning, it's the communication is where we kind of have this hiccup where we're not able to really say this is the issue and this is how you show it or represent it. So
exactly, and it's twofold because and this is such a good point because you're also presenting a lot of times your work to a non-technical audience. So how do you best translate it from even the use of vocab, so storytelling, and then there's also the aspect of using the right kind of visual diagrams, right? Because you can have your technical plans, but not everybody's going to be able to read that.
Right.
So
and so you've answered my your question. You've answered your question, but it's true. So there was this thread in academic planning discourse in the United States where they said planning is communicative action. Right.
I love that.
Right, and so it's so critical, not just what you communicate and how you communicate, but also to know that the context within which your communication takes place, how it's interpreted. What are the forces that are shaping people's interpretation of what you're saying? Right? What are the political, social, cultural factors that affect things? So we can teach people to speak well. We can teach people to create effective diagrams and write good words. But then how that is absorbed and how that is distorted, perhaps, when it's communicated, right, or when it's comprehended, you need to be sophisticated about that. But essentially, you answered my question. Your question.
Are you thinking? Are you thinking of like partnering up with consultants to come in and not just be involved in the design critics, but for students to not really an internship, but like an exchange kind of
or like a
program.
workshop. Or
workshops that can be hosted within consultancies or within municipalities, where the students can be immersed and have maybe some of these colleagues that work or employees that work within those consultancies
show
part
how
of the
they
university.
communicate best and what can be learned.
And not just also beyond communication, but design and.
So we have this memorandum of understanding, so relationship with Dubai municipality. They have this think tank that they call ULab. Right? They're bringing together universities, government officials, developers, private developers, and then professionals, right, on specific projects and conduct workshops and things like that. That's I think an important part of
it's a step in the right direction.
And it's something that's really valuable for us. So for the past 2 semesters, The capstone workshop that our students do is actually generated
Amazing.
and we're supported. So Faika Abu Kube, who's one of our
Yeah.
alumni, works for Dubai Municipality, actually works closely with our students when they're working on the capstone thing.
That's amazing.
Capstone project.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to shift the lens maybe or zoom in on Sharjah a little bit, because when we talk about urbanism, especially in the Gulf, usually we focus on GCC cities, Abu Dhabi, Dubai. But your work specifically has looked at urban change in the Gulf through themes such as housing, social restructuring, resilience, heritage-led development. So looking specifically at the lens of Sharjah, what planning questions, Professor Varkki, do you think deserve far more attention today? And what does Sharjah uniquely contribute to the wider UAE urban conversation?
Okay, so we could get into the weeds and talk about specifics, but I think there is one question that Sharjah is facing today that I think all of the GCC is facing.
Excellent, yeah.
And here's the question.
Yeah.
Can we afford to consume the amount of land we are consuming at present? At the rate at which we are consuming land at the present? Yes, there seems to be an almost infinite amount of undeveloped land right out there.
But that's not true.
Yeah.
That's not true. And so should we use it the way we're using it? So our houses are becoming bigger. Our families are becoming smaller.
Yeah.
Right? And this was true in the United States also when we worked there, right?
Yeah.
So as a result, for a small increase in population, you have a huge increase in land area.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
So I had a group of students look at suburban development in Sharjah in 2024, 2023. It was 3 students, they were really great. And they demonstrated that by 2040, if we consume land at the same rate, we're going to be way, way out there in what are right now small villages.
Yeah.
Not only will we have consumed valuable desert, we would destroy those small villages which have it's a way of life that will be lost.
And this is an intersection of spatial and social issues that come together because you're thinking if we know these figures and students can figure this out, how would we deal with that from a real practical way?
Right. And so Khadija Mulani looked at a different model of residential development. Right? We'd have to change the way we think about, and I say we, I think across the spectrum.
Definitely.
We'd have to think of what is a house.
Yes.
What does it mean? What is the impact of what we are doing on the ecosystem?
Yeah.
How do we maintain our social and cultural systems and relationships without,
compromising our ability to live in the future.
Right, and then there was a transportation component to it. There was
an
housing
infrastructure cost component to it.
Right, because one of my students actually worked for SEWA, the Electric Water Authority in Sharjah, and he was saying, you know how much it's going to cost to extend our electrical and water utilities out to this area? He was mind-boggled, right? And so that's what I said. If you're thinking about tomorrow, then you do these incremental small changes.
Yeah.
If you think about 2040, the picture changes.
Absolutely.
Right?
Your plan looks completely different.
And your thinking needs to be very different. And so that's one of the things I'm working on. So I've been funded to do a project this planning support systems to simulate future growth in Sharjah out to 2040, 2050, using a mathematical system that I worked on with colleagues in the United States. We applied it there. We will apply it in Sharjah. And hopefully that will raise awareness of what is the consequence of growing the way we're growing. So your other question is, what does Sharjah contribute? So I think we could contribute.
Yeah, what can other cities in the UAE, for example, learn from Sharjah in terms of planning?
Yeah.
So I think Sharjah says one positive thing, and that is it's okay to be understated.
Yeah.
Right? Substance matters. And it's okay to be understated. It's okay not to be...
There's an elegance to it, actually.
It's okay not to be glitzy.
Yeah.
Right? And there's certainly something to be said for glitz. But I think there's something to be said for an understated approach.
Completely agree, yeah.
That's not to say it doesn't matter what you do, but I think, and recently in Sharjah, when you look around, I think you see some really interesting models. So
I was going to ask you on that. What do you think is a
so
good model to
Arada's Al
speak?
Jada project?
Yeah.
I don't know if
Yes,
you
yeah.
visited.
Definitely.
It's
Yeah, I learned about it from the students actually, because they
Right.
always refer to it as, you know, in their case studies
Yeah.
and whatnot.
and it's amazing the number of young Emirati men and women who are attracted
Yeah.
to that in all seasons.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah.
Regardless of whether it's summer or winter, the people are attracted to the
It is
place.
very successful,
and it's you know, so that.
Do you want to speak a little bit to the project? So it's a mixed-use development.
Right. So this is a Zaha Hadid master plan, but it goes much beyond the master
Yeah.
plan, right? I think Arada has done a fantastic job in
Arada's a
creating.
developer.
Yeah.
Sorry, creating the public realm there. They've done a really good job. It's
Yeah.
not, like I said, it's not.
A little goes a long
glitzy.
way.
We
It's not
always talk
glitzy.
about that.
Yeah.
It's not glitzy.
Yeah.
It's about the
right?
simple
No.
It's very,
interventions.
it's very solid. You know, there's this term in the United States, meat and potatoes, meaning they're kind of basic
Yeah.
stuff,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's,
yeah.
it's meat and potatoes,
Yeah.
but it works beautifully.
It does.
Right?
It really
Because you can design for glitzy and then actually end up with projects that don't attract
Yeah.
anyone,
Yeah,
and it
sure.
doesn't become a successful
Right.
project
And how
at
many
all.
times do we confront iconic architecture and buildings that fail at the street level?
Exactly.
Right,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
Right?
And they become isolated buildings
Yeah.
and structures within a city,
Yes.
which then
Right.
it's very sad.
Right, and so those are lost opportunities. I think I think sometimes the glitz tends to hide, right, the lack of kind of basic substance.
Yeah.
I think.
Agreed.
So to me, I think that's Sharjah's contribution. That could be Sharjah's contribution.
Love that.
to-
Love that.
And it's very interesting that you spoke about housing, because obviously urban sprawl has been a massive, massive topic of
Right.
conversation, especially within our context in the Gulf. So do you think that the UAE is treating housing seriously enough as a planning issue rather than only a delivery or policy issue? And where do you think the biggest gaps lie?
Yeah, so I did this study in Ras Al Khaimah again with my colleague at the University of Alberta, Sandeep Agarwal, and we looked at the Sheikh Zayed housing program and Ras Al Khaimah's own housing program and what worked and what doesn't work, things like that. So basically our findings are that, I think the recipients are happy with the houses they're getting, right? But the urban impact of that model is problematic,
Extremely.
right? And it's this gobbling up of land,
Yes.
right? That we're talking about, and this creation of cookie cutter kind of environments, right?
Yes.
So in that studio we worked on in things. So we need to figure out what a vertical farij looks like.
Okay, interesting.
What does it mean to be a vertical farij?
Yeah.
Because
Vertical farij?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
I love
such
that
a
term.
cool term.
no, and it's not my term, right?
Yeah.
It's been used.
Yeah.
There was this UAE and university professor who many years ago, when I wrote that piece on the two Gulf hearts of two Gulf cities, he used the word, I think, farij in the sky.
Yes.
So that term's been out there. I don't claim it. But I think we need to figure out, because if we don't cluster, if we're not more dense, we will have a significant long-term negative impact, right?
Big time.
Look, you talk about housing, right?
Yes.
It's a constitutional right for Emiratis to have a household, have a house.
Yeah.
That's a big deal. I mean, that's you don't find that everywhere.
And it should be a universal right, if you
Exactly.
ask me.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic.
Yeah.
But it's what form does that house take? I think that. So people say, oh, but Emirati families will not live in anything other than a villa.
Yeah.
Huh? Well, at some point, they moved from what I call Arabic houses,
Yes. Yeah.
Courtyard
the
houses,
beautiful
yeah.
courtyard houses. They moved into what we have now,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
Outward-looking,
Yeah.
glazed
Yeah.
buildings. They moved.
They did,
Yeah.
exactly.
They
right?
adjusted, exactly,
Why?
adapted.
Because somehow it was shown as being desirable. It was shown as being progressive. It's shown as being modern.
Exactly.
So we want to do that.
Of course.
We can change the narrative, no?
We can.
Yes.
It won't happen tomorrow.
Yeah.
Yes.
But we can change the narrative.
True, and I think as planners, we have an obligation to show what the negative consequences of
Yes.
this type of urbanism is over the long term. You know,
But
Yeah.
it actually so communication, right? I think we need to show the positive aspects of living in this
Love that.
vertical
Yeah.
for ease.
yes, yes, yeah,
You can do things in a vertical for ease that you can't do now,
definitely.
right? If we can show that,
Yes.
then I think
Can you
we
give an
can-
example of that?
So, for instance, you can get to the masjid
Yes,
without driving your car,
Amazing.
or grocery, or
your grocery without driving your car.
And another thing I think it solves for is isolation, because what these new suburbs have created is a lot of isolation
Yeah.
between people, and that's very counter to Emirati heritage and culture. We like to get together, you want to walk to the majlis, walk to the mosque. So I think that's another consequence that has happened because of sprawl. So vertical living can actually create a stronger sense of community and belonging to a place.
Yeah.
You know your neighbors, you know your community and who you live with, whereas now, and I feel like as we've moved to further suburbs with bigger homes, people know their neighbors less, and there's less a sense of a community.
Absolutely. I don't want to digress, but my former student Shaima Halmoudi talked to these women who lived in a neighborhood in Sharjah in the 70s.
Yeah.
And then gradually moved out into the suburbs, various parts of it. And one of the biggest changes they said is, we don't talk to each other anymore.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We don't visit. Now I have to get in my car and drive somewhere, and that person has to prepare a formal meal. I've got to get all dressed up. Where? In Naba, I think is the name of the old thing.
Yeah.
They used to just talk over the
wall, yeah.
or from the roof to the roof, right?
Yeah.
And so I think no, but about housing, there's the other end of the spectrum also.
Sure.
Right. Again, some interesting work that I want to share. It's happening this semester. So, low-wage workers.
Affordable housing.
Right?
Affordable housing.
They currently live in these illegally subdivided houses
Yes.
Yeah.
that are a health and safety
Hazards,
hazard, right?
Yeah.
We see that as a problem. But Doreen Shadafan, I don't know, you may have had her in your urban design class. She's looking at that problem in Rashidiyya right
Very
now.
interesting.
Very interesting.
And she says she and some others and Razan Hussain, who's also in the class, talked to each other, and they said, look, maybe it's not a problem. Maybe it's a good thing, because if you look at these are small communities that share.
Exactly.
Yes.
You know, the amount of sharing, and so you talk of circular economy.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
a mini circular economy.
In
right?
itself, absolutely.
We're missing that when we see the thing. So what Doreen is proposing is, why don't we make co-living a formally approved housing type?
Yeah.
Right? Now,
Yeah.
it's going to take a lot of work. We have to figure out how to do it in a safe, secure way, and how we do it.
Yeah.
But it's so. I think we need to address the other end of the spectrum also. And the most important thing is, I don't think we should do them in isolation.
Yeah.
They work hand in hand,
Exactly.
actually.
But also, I think we tend to segregate these people, these groups. We say, oh, the Emirati households will not live with you.
Yeah.
But Emirati households have maids,
Domestic
and
workers, so they're
Exactly.
already
in the-
integrated.
Exactly.
in the house.
Yeah.
So, we have some biases
Yeah.
and some things,
Right.
and we need to get over it.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And so it's a really exciting,
Yeah.
it's a really exciting question.
Yeah.
Really
Yeah.
difficult question.
Yes.
But I think there are answers, and I think we need to work on it and not just assume that we should just keep doing the way we do.
So there's a lot
100%.
of
Sorry,
opportunity.
we can go on and on.
No,
and
no,
on.
no.
of
I actually
course.
want to now shift to a topic of heritage, especially heritage as a planning tool, Professor Varkki. Because across the Gulf, there's clearly been a resurgence of interest in heritage, memory, historic urban forms, which you've written about. But the big question is whether heritage is genuinely being used as a structural planning tool, or whether it is still too often sits in the level of image, branding, aesthetics. How do you see it?
So like everything,
Yeah.
it's a complex question that
Yeah.
you've asked me.
Yeah.
So in that article that I wrote in 2012, it looked at the Heart of Sharjah project and Musharraf in Doha, which was originally the Heart of Doha.
Yes.
So that's why I titled the article "New Hearts for Two Gulf Cities," right,
Yeah.
or something like that. Right? They took very different approaches, right? So the Heart of Sharjah is reconstructing, right? Our memory of what used to be there. And I think in Fahidi in Dubai, for instance, it's a similar approach.
Yeah.
Yes.
In Alain, it's the
Yeah.
same, in Abu Dhabi. So generally in the UAE, the approach has been to reconstruct.
Exactly. They talk about the collective memory a lot.
Right,
Yeah.
to reconstruct that
Yeah.
heritage. There are other projects that are slightly take a slightly different approach, like so Diriyah in Riyadh. for
Yes.
instance,
Yeah.
right? Yes, there is some preservation of an existing, but it's coupled with a new development that is really energetic, really spectacular, right? And the whole thing works quite
I love
well,
I
quite
love
well,
that.
I thought,
Marrying
right?
the old with the new
Yeah.
is for
Rather
me
than
super cool.
deleting and starting with
Exactly.
something. Yeah.
Right. So don't get me wrong. I'm not saying there's no value in reconstructing, right?
Yeah.
I'm not
Yeah,
saying,
yeah,
that's
for
not what
sure,
I'm saying.
for sure.
I'm just saying that that's one end of the spectrum.
Yeah, yeah,
right?
yeah.
So there's Diriyah, and I think there the magic is so just like in Al Jadda and Sharjah, Diriyah actually attracts, hordes of young Saudi men and women
It does.
there, and there's a dynamic there,
Yeah.
right? Bahrain has the
Bahrain was on the tip of my
I
tongue.
know.
the purling path,
Yeah.
right?
Yes. Yeah.
Which is a different. It's a different scale. It's a different, but it's a similar approach in the sense that you insert these things there so that they work together. Muscat has the Mutrukh,
Matrah, yeah.
Matrah,
Yeah, Souk Matrah, yeah.
That project, which I don't know that well,
Yeah.
but it sounds interesting to me.
But speaking of communication, actually, very recently, Muscat released their Greater Muscat urban plan, and the way that they've been communicating it, I think, is so effective. Because what they've done is they've brought different specialists of Omanis that worked on the plan. They have a full life-scale model of the plan, and they're constantly talking about, what the new metro will bring, what the new neighborhoods will bring. What does it mean that you're going to be able to walk for your daily needs? And I think that was really effective in the way they presented that. Please.
No, it's interesting you say that because I'm thinking of Dubai 2040.
Okay, yeah.
Why aren't school children learning about this?
100%, yeah.
So my colleague at the University of Lou Hopkins was talking about the 1900 plan for Chicago. It was in textbooks.
Yeah, it
Students
was.
in the classroom were learning
We're
about
learning
it.
about it,
That's
yeah.
true.
And this is 100 years ago.
Yeah. Why do we think of a plan as this document
Yeah, that
sits somewhere
yeah.
and that's confidential? Nobody knows. No. Spread the word. Everybody learns about it.
and should be proud of it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so, sorry, I
No,
digress.
no.
I digress from you. But Musharraf takes a completely different approach, right?
It does.
In the sense that it reinterprets the traditional type,
Yeah.
right? In a new way.
Yeah.
And I must say, in a really successful way.
I would agree.
Same thing. You go there in a weekend evening. The number of Qatari young men and women there it's astounding. All the food and beverage places, there are lines out there that, it's just so there is something about heritage that resonates deeply within people. And we have to recognize that. Right, and so I think that's really that's I think the key. Right. I hope I've answered your question.
You absolutely did.
Don't hesitate to keep me on track.
No.
That's all.
Go.
We're really enjoying this. Yeah, we could really go on for forever. I'm just gonna say one thing. Do you want to land on the last question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, shall I, yeah?
Yeah, sure.
Just so, because we have only 10 minutes, so
Okay,
we'll have the
All right.
closing question.
So I think maybe a good place to land is with the idea of reform, Professor Varkki, because if we agree that planning matters and that the stakes are only increasing, then the question becomes not just what the field should do, but what needs to change inside the system to enable it. So I guess what we're wanting to get from you is, what do you think would have the biggest ripple effect in terms of change in the UAE? If you just look at the whole urban development, urban planning sector, would it be like, whether in institutions, in delivery, in education, regulation, where would it sit? What would have the biggest ripple effect in terms of change? Please take your time to think about this.
That's the essential question, no? So it's a great question to end on. So, and it's obviously a tough question. It's not a, look, I think in many other contexts, urban planning has a framework, has an institutional framework. There's a legal basis for it. There are protocols and procedures and things. That doesn't exist here.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
We don't, so sometimes it's an Emiri decree.
Right.
Sometimes it's a press release.
An admin order.
Something like that.
Yeah.
We also don't have, I think, terms for different kinds of plans.
Right.
We borrow these terms from whichever consultant is coming in and helping us with it.
So
no?
true. Yeah.
Yes.
So in my case, in 2007, I worked on a structure plan.
Okay.
Right?
Yeah.
I had one idea for structure plan. The government officials had a different idea for structure plan.
Yeah.
Right? I think there needs to be a legal basis for planning. There needs to be an institutional structure.
100%. Yeah.
Right. So,
because that would be the key to organizing and unlocking everything in an
Exactly.
organized and structured way.
Yeah.
right. No, because you asked me, like, students are struggling when they go out. That's partly because there isn't a framework.
No,
Yeah.
that they can actually read and learn and
That-
apply.
if we could teach, that look, this is the framework for planning in the UAE.
Yes.
So when I did my master's in urban planning in the United States, I had a course on planning law. For a designer to go study planning law was a major trauma. But it was the best course that I have ever taken. I've written articles because of what I learned in that course. I got a C+ or something in the course. I did really badly in my exam, but I learned so much from it.
Yeah.
Because there is judicial and legal rationale or foundations for what planners do.
Yeah.
There isn't that here.
Absolutely.
Right? And to me, and I'm not saying I would be able to do it, but I think we have enough knowledgeable, smart people here who can do it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yes.
And I think...
And it's become so mature as well now here.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So in 2002, I believe it was, so Dr. Salim al-Shafi, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Wrote this newspaper article saying that, look, we need planners here, right?
Yeah.
It's not just enough to have engineers, right?
Yeah.
And that's why we started our program at AUS, right?
Yeah.
So I think it's possible where we've got people who have the wisdom and the knowledge, right, to put it together. I think that would be a game changer.
Absolutely.
Right? So then there's some consistency across the UAE. People know what to do, when to do.
Sure.
Right? And so we are not kind of figuring out how to do it.
Yeah.
So we're talking about, okay, we got a 2040 plan. Maybe we should teach it in the classroom.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Right? So I think planning needs to come out into the open, have a structure,
Yeah.
Agreed.
have a foundation.
Yes,
right?
and not be something that happens behind closed
Exactly.
doors or
Right.
boardrooms.
And
Yeah,
everyone becomes bound to it.
Exactly.
You know, so it's not just the students in these educational institutions,
Yeah.
but it's also, we're talking about developers,
yeah,
consultants.
Yeah, yes, yeah. They're all speaking the
they're
same
all
language and working
exactly.
towards one vision or goal.
Yeah.
Exactly. I mean, we'll be talking about the same thing, right? We'll be talking about the same thing. So now we use terms that we've borrowed from different places,
Yeah.
like DCR,
Yes.
Development Control
Regulations,
Yeah.
right? Means something in one place. It doesn't mean anything in some
Exactly.
other place.
True.
You have to Google it to find out what it
Yeah.
means. Right?
What it means in different places.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so, what if we had a lexicon for planning in the UAE?
Yeah.
What if we had formal legal basis for planning in the UAE?
Right. Yeah.
In the United States, there are a whole bunch of court decisions that make planning
Legally binding.
legal,
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
right? Something like that
Needs to come into play.
And I'm not a lawyer, and maybe I've been lazy and not tried to find out what is the legal
Yeah.
thing. But I don't know how to go about
Yeah.
it.
Right.
Yeah,
Yes.
right?
Yeah.
But there are people who do.
Exactly.
Right? And it doesn't have to be
Exactly.
me. There are so many
It's
people.
a different
here.
system thinking.
Yeah.
Yes,
It's a
exactly.
different,
Yeah, and I think if we did that, it'd be a game changer.
Yeah.
I completely agree.
Such
And
a
on
great
that note,
suggestion.
Professor Varkki, thank you so much for joining us. This was such a thoughtful and timely conversation, and we're really grateful for the depth and honesty that you've brought to it. What makes this discussion especially valuable, I think, is that it reminds us that urban planning is not just about plans or policies. It's also about how we educate the profession, how we define its purpose, and whether we're preparing it to respond to the realities that our cities are actually facing. So thank you for your time, and to everyone listening, thank you for joining us. We hope this conversation offered not only insight into the field of urban planning, but also a sharper lens on where our cities may be headed and what it will take to shape them better. Thank you.